every apex predator that hunted humans to near extinction ranked by lethality. All right, let's go. Number 10, Haast's eagle, the only predator in recorded zooarchaeological evidence confirmed to have evolved its entire body plan specifically around the dimensions of a human-sized prey animal. The Haast's eagle, Hyraetus morai, occupied the South Island of New Zealand from approximately 1.8 million years ago until its extinction circa 1445 CE, a date constrained by radiocarbon analysis of subfossil bone deposits recovered from Canterbury swamp sediments. The bird was not simply large, it was architecturally reconfigured for mass. Females, the larger sex as is standard in raptors, reached body masses between 10 and 15 kilograms, with wingspans of up to 3 meters. Its talons were, in cross-section and curvature, functionally analogous to those of a modern tiger. The primary killing instrument was not the beak, but the feet, which paleontologists at the Canterbury Museum have measured at talon lengths of up to 9 centimeters. The prey record is the anomaly. The bones of adult moa, 200-kilogram ratites, show Haast's eagle strike marks at the pelvis and skull, the same two anatomical targets used by big cats attacking large ungulates. The implication, which took decades of analysis to fully articulate, is that the eagle had evolved a pursuit and pierce hunting strategy calibrated to animals in the 70 to 200-kilogram range. Humans occupy the lower portion of that range. Dr. Paul Schofield of the Canterbury Museum, in a 2009 skeletal analysis published in the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology, documented subfossil human remains from 3 separate South Island sites bearing Haast's eagle impact signatures, perpendicular puncture wounds to the posterior ilium consistent with a high-velocity talon strike from above, and depressed skull fractures in a pattern matching the bird's hallux claw. The sample size was small, 11 individuals across the 3 sites, but the wound morphology was unambiguous. Schofield noted that the strike velocity required to produce the observed cranial fractures, calculated from the bone compression angle and the estimated mass of the bird at impact, exceeded 50 kilometers per hour. The detail that resists the scavenging hypothesis, the primary counter-argument, is that 5 of the 11 individuals showed talon wounds on skeletal elements that carry no nutritional value to a scavenger, including the occipital bone and the lateral wrist. The Haast eagle entered public discourse primarily through Maori oral histories, where a creature called Te Hokio or Poa, a large, dark, predatory bird, appears in oral histories collected by ethnographer Elsden Best in the early 20th century. The colonial-era naturalist accounts that followed the 1871 formal description of Haast's eagle by Julius von Haast emphasized its ecological role as a moa hunter. The human predation evidence, documented in fragmentary form from the 1890s onward, was consistently framed as opportunistic or post-mortem. The wound pattern data from Schofield's 2009 analysis did not appear in mainstream natural history publications aimed at general audiences for several years after publication. An official synthesis of the human predation evidence was incorporated into the Te Papa Tongareva Museum's permanent Te Taiao exhibition, revised in 2019, which acknowledged that Haast's eagle may have regarded early Polynesian settlers as potential prey. The passive construction is characteristic of institutional language around the subject. The formal scientific consensus, as stated in the 2021 review by Worthy and Schofield in New Zealand Journal of Ecology, classifies the predation events as documented but not quantifiable in population-level terms. But the population-level question is precisely what the wound evidence does not close. The Polynesian settlement of the South Island is dated to approximately 1280 CE, and Haast's eagle survived for roughly 165 years after that arrival, a cohabitation window during which human population density on the South Island is estimated to have grown from several hundred to several thousand individuals. The eagle was present across an estimated 150,000 square kilometers of viable habitat. 11 documented predation events is a floor, not a ceiling. The subfossil preservation rate for soft tissue wound evidence in the acidic soils of the South Island is estimated at under 3%. Number 9. The Nile crocodile. the only living species for which peer-reviewed mortality studies have established a continuous multi-millennium predation record exceeding documented kills by all other non-human predators combined. Crocodilus niloticus has occupied the river systems, lakes, and wetlands of sub-Saharan Africa continuously since the late Miocene, approximately 8 million years before present, with its current morphology stable since at least the Pleistocene. The species reaches adult lengths of 5 to 6 meters and body masses exceeding 700 kilograms. Its ambush architecture. The eyes and nostrils sit at the dorsal apex of the skull, allowing full submersion while maintaining sensory contact with the surface. The lateral jaw musculature produces a bite force measured at the University of Florida in 2003 at 16,414 newtons, sufficient to compress a femur in a single closure. The anomaly in the Nile crocodile's predation record is not its physical capability, but its geographic distribution relative to human population density. The species shares a watershed with more than 100 million people along the Nile corridor alone, and inhabits Lake Malawi, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Victoria, the Zambezi, the Congo, the Okavango, and the Limpopo, every major freshwater system on the continent. Dr. Alistair Graham of the International Union for Conservation Group Crocodile Specialist Group, in the most comprehensive available mortality analysis published in the IUCN Crocodile Specialist Group newsletter in 2008, estimated annual human fatalities attributable to Nile crocodile attack at between 500 and 2,500 per year across sub-Saharan Africa, with significant undercounting in rural areas due to absent reporting infrastructure. A separate analysis by Lariera and Verdade, using Mozambican hospital records and village survey data for the Zambezi Delta region, estimated local kill rates of 12 to 17 persons per 100,000 population per year, a mortality coefficient that, if applied uniformly to the species' range, would yield annual fatalities in the low thousands. The detail that complicates the lower bound of Graham's estimate is that the Nile Basin's rural mortality reporting infrastructure captures an estimated 20 to 40% of violent deaths of any cause. Public knowledge of Nile crocodile fatality rates has been shaped primarily from two sources: wildlife documentaries, which represent the species primarily in the context of migrating ungulate predation on the Serengeti, and World Health Organization injury reports, which do not disaggregate crocodile attack from the broader category of animal-related injuries. The specific figures produced by Graham and by the Crocodile Specialist Group have not entered WHO reporting frameworks. The gap between the institutional representation of the species as a conservation concern and its ongoing role as a human predator is not addressed in any unified public health document produced by an African governmental health ministry or international health organization as of 2023. The IUCN Crocodile Specialist Group's mandate formally encompasses human-crocodile conflict, and its published conflict databases, maintained through regional specialist networks, represent the most detailed available record. A formal review of human fatality data was conducted in 2012 and again in 2019. Both reviews noted the inadequacy of national reporting mechanisms and called for standardized fatality reporting protocols. Neither review produced a binding standard. And yet the predation record for this species does not begin with modern agriculture or riverine settlement. Hominid remains with crocodilian bite marks, specifically the parallel scoring pattern produced by crocodilus tooth rows on cortical bone, have been recovered from Olduvai Gorge dated to 1.84 million years before present, and from the Turkana Basin at sites dated between 2.3 and 1.9 million years. Paleontologist Jonathan Saleh of the University of Tübingen documented in 2017 that crocodilian predation marks appear on hominid skeletal material across at least 7 East African fossil sites, spanning 1.9 million years. The species has been eating hominids, by the bone record, longer than Homo sapiens has existed.
Number 8. The cave hyena. A predator whose bone accumulation sites in European caves contain more hominid skeletal material than all contemporary carnivore assemblages on the continent combined. Crocuta spelaea, the Pleistocene cave hyena was the European subspecies of the spotted hyena, ranging from the British Isles to Siberia between approximately 500,000 and 11,000 years before present. It was not, by morphological analysis, meaningfully distinct from the modern spotted hyena, the same species adapted over regional time to a fauna of woolly rhinoceros, cave bear, and mammoth. Adult body mass reached approximately 110 kilograms. The dentition was, and remains in the modern subspecies, the highest bite force jaw architecture of any terrestrial mammal. Molar and premolar surfaces capable of processing cortical bone that would resist the dentition of a lion. The species lived gregariously, in clans estimated by den site faunal composition at between 30 and 80 individuals. The anomaly identified in the European fossil record is the consistent presence of hominin cranial and postcranial material in cave hyena den accumulations, not as isolated finds, but as patterned assemblages. Dr. Noel Sievert of the Université de Perpignan, in a 2010 taphonomic analysis of the Arago cave assemblage in the French Pyrenees, documented 23 hominin bone fragments attributed to Homo heidelbergensis within a matrix of cave hyena coprolite and ungulate bone. The hominin elements showed carnivore characteristic gnaw scoring, tooth drag striations, and percussion pitting on cancellous surfaces, identical in morphology to the hyena modification patterns on red deer and horsebone in the same layer. There was no evidence of thermal alteration, no burning, that would indicate human habitation. A separate analysis by Steiner, 1994, examining the Grotta Guattari assemblage in Italy where the Circeo Neanderthal skull was recovered, concluded that the skull's position and modification pattern were consistent with hyena processing rather than human ritual. The detail that remains outside the scavenging hypothesis is the demographic profile of the hominin material. The cave hyena assemblages consistently contain juvenile and elderly elements, that age cohorts most consistent with active predation rather than scavenging of already dead adults. The Circeo skull entered public discourse in 1939 when Alberto Carlo Blanc of the University of Rome interpreted the foramen magnum damage as evidence of Neanderthal cannibalism, an interpretation that persisted in popular accounts for over 4 decades. The cave hyena taphonomic reanalysis, published across multiple papers between 1991 and 2002, did not produce a widely circulated counter-narrative. The cannibalism framing remained the dominant popular account of the Circeo specimen through the 2010s, appearing in textbooks, museum placards, and documentary treatments that did not incorporate the hyena modification literature. The revision of the single skull does not address the breadth of the accumulation record. Cave hyena den sites with confirmed hominin material have been identified at 31 separate European locations, spanning a temporal range from 450,000 to 30,000 years before present. The geographic footprint covers an arc from southern England to the Levant. The hominin species represented in these assemblages includes Homo heidelbergensis, Homo neanderthalensis, and anatomically modern Homo sapiens. For at least 420,000 years, across 31 sites distributed over an estimated 4 million square kilometers, cave hyenas were, by taphonomic evidence, eating humans, and, in some documented cases, pursuing them. Number 7. The saltwater crocodile, the species with the highest documented kill rate per encounter ratio of any living predator, and the only animal for which military after-action reports constitute a significant portion of the mortality record. Crocodylus porosus, the saltwater crocodile, is the largest living reptile, with confirmed adult males reaching 6.17 meters in length and estimated body masses exceeding 1,000 kilograms. It occupies coastal and estuarine habitats from the eastern coast of India through Southeast Asia to northern Australia, and is uniquely capable of extended ocean travel. Individuals have been tracked crossing open water distances of over 400 kilometers. The species is not, unlike the Nile crocodile, constrained to freshwater corridors. It is a marine-capable apex predator that can operate in harbor approaches, tidal inlets, and river mouths adjacent to high-density human settlements. The anomaly in its mortality record is a single documented event that in absolute fatality terms constitutes the largest recorded mass predation event of humans by a non-human animal in modern history. On the night of February 19, 1945, British and Indian forces of the 14th Army drove an estimated 1,000 Japanese soldiers of the 54th Division into the Ram Ri Island mangrove swamps of coastal Burma during a tactical encirclement operation. The swamps covered approximately 16 square kilometers of tidal estuary known to support a high-density saltwater crocodile population. By the following morning, approximately 980 of the 1,000 soldiers were unaccounted for. Roughly 20 survivors were recovered. Naturalist Bruce Stanley Wright, serving as an officer with the British forces, recorded the event in his 1962 memoir, providing the only contemporaneous English-language account. Wright attributed the majority fatalities to crocodile predation, estimating the crocodile population of the Ram Ri swamps in the hundreds. Individuals. Independent casualty accounting by military historians, including Lewis Allen in Burma, The Longest War, 1984, confirmed the general parameters of the encirclement and the non-recovery of the approximately 980 men, while noting the absence of Japanese survivor accounts for the swamp event specifically. The Ram Ri event entered the Guinness Book of World Records in 1968 as the greatest disaster suffered from animals. It has appeared in documentary treatments, natural history accounts, and wildlife program segments as a reliable set piece. The evidentiary quality of Wright's account, one observer, one night, no independent Japanese testimony, has been noted by military historians including Daniel Marston in his 2002 analysis of the Burma campaign, who characterized the crocodile fatality attribution as plausible but not independently documented. The alternative casualty explanations, drowning, hypothermia, allied fire, and snake envenomation, have not been systematically excluded or weighted. No major military after-action report from either the British or Japanese command structures has been located that specifically enumerates cause of death for the Ram Ri swamp fatalities. The event remains in the Guinness Book of World Records database under the original 1968 classification. The evidentiary standard applied to its inclusion was not revised in subsequent editions. And yet the Ram Ri event is not anomalous in kind, only in scale. Saltwater crocodile attacks on humans in the Sundarbans Delta of Bangladesh and India are estimated by local health authorities at 50 to 70 fatalities annually, a figure considered a severe undercount by the Wildlife Institute of India's Human-Wildlife Conflict Cell, which, in a 2015 report, noted that mangrove area fatalities are systematically undercounted due to body non-recovery. In northern Australia, where the species was protected from hunting in 1971 and populations have since recovered from near extirpation, annual attack rates have increased from near zero in the 1970s to documented average of 2.3 fatal attacks per year between 2005 and 2020. The Australian population is estimated at 100,000 individuals. The Bangladesh-India population is estimated at 200 individuals. The ratio of those numbers to their respective fatality rates is not a comfort.
Number 6. The leopard. The only member of the genus Panthera for which forensic analysis of individual kills extended over decades produced a documented personal predation record against humans exceeding 400 verified fatalities. The leopard, Panthera pardus, is the most widely distributed large felid on Earth, with confirmed range across sub-Saharan Africa, the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and isolated Central Asian mountain systems. Adult male mass ranges from 37 to 90 kilograms depending on subspecies and geographic population. The species is distinguished from other large felids by behavioral plasticity. It is the only big cat that has maintained viable urban-adjacent populations in cities including Mumbai, Nairobi, and Colombo, using storm drain networks, scrub corridors, and building interiors for daytime rest. It is primarily nocturnal, exceptionally silent at approach, and capable of dragging prey animals twice its own body mass into tree canopy, an adaptation that removes kills from ground-level scavenger access and, incidentally, from human recovery. The anomaly at the center of the leopard's human predation record is not the species' behavior, but the existence of individual animals that specialized in human prey to a degree that required formal military and colonial administrative responses. The Pinar leopard, killed by hunter Jim Corbett in the Kumaon district of what is now Uttarakhand, India, in 1910, had a documented kill record of 400 confirmed human fatalities, established by Corbett through village-by-village census in collaboration with the district magistrate's office. The confirmation methodology, cross-referencing reported disappearances, recovered clothing, and bone fragments against geographic movement patterns, was described by Corbett in The Man-Eating Leopard of Rudraprayag, 1947, and was corroborated by British administrative records held at the India Office in London, as reviewed by historian John Calvert in 1994. The Rudraprayag leopard, killed by Corbett in 1926, had a documented record of 125 confirmed kills over 8 years, involving a total human population within its range of approximately 50,000 people. Dr. K. Ulas Karanth of the Wildlife Conservation Society's India program, in a 2000 analysis of historical man-eating records published in Oryx, confirmed that both animals' kill records were methodologically consistent and not subject to the substantial overcounting typical of colonial-era wildlife mortality reports. The Pinar and Rudraprayag events entered public discourse through Corbett's own accounts, which were widely read in Britain and India from the 1940s onward. The framing was consistently individual, exceptional animals with exceptional behavioral histories, not indicative of species-level predation patterns. The structural conditions that produced both animals, human-caused injury preventing normal prey pursuit in the Pinar case, and dense human population in low canopy terrain in both, were present in Corbett's own analysis, but did not become the frame through which the events were reported or taught. The broader pattern of leopard predation on humans in the Indian subcontinent was formally reviewed by the Bombay Natural History Society in 1922 and by the Indian Board for Wildlife in 1956. Both reviews recommended systematic data collection on man-eating incidents. Systematic data collection was not implemented. The Wildlife Institute of India's current database of large carnivore attacks, maintained since 1987, captures fatality data from states that submit reports. Submission is not mandatory. The most recent comprehensive published analysis, by Atria et al. In PLAS 1, 2016, documented 3,136 leopard-related human injuries and 156 fatalities in Maharashtra state alone between 2001 and 2010. The individual animal framing, the exceptional man-eater, has consistently dominated institutional and public discussion of leopard predation, but the individual framing does not account for the structural reality that leopard range overlap with dense human population is not exceptional in the South Asian subcontinent. It is the baseline condition for approximately 1.2 billion people across the species' South and Southeast Asian range. Of the estimated 12,000 to 14,000 leopards in India, Karanth's 2000 analysis estimated that between 4 and 7% had consumed human flesh at least once. The Pinar leopard killed 400 people. It was one animal. The current Indian leopard population is 4 orders of magnitude larger. Number 5. The cave lion. A predator whose range, body mass, and inferred pack behavior place it as the primary large mammal predator in contact with anatomically modern humans during the period of maximum human demographic vulnerability in Europe. Panthera leospelea, the Eurasian cave lion, ranged from the British Isles through Siberia and into northwestern North America between approximately 370,000 and 13,000 years before present. It was not, despite the common name, a cave dweller. Zooarchaeological analysis of den site bone accumulations indicates it used cave entrances for birthing and caching, not for sustained habitation. Skeletal material indicates a body mass between 250 and 350 kilograms, substantially larger than modern African lions, comparable in mass to the largest known subspecies of the American lion. The question of sociality, whether cave lions hunted in coordinated groups, analogous to modern lion prides, remains unresolved, but is informed by a specific category of evidence: the frequency and anatomical position of cave lion remains in context unambiguously associated with human activity. The anomaly is not that the species and humans coexisted, but the nature of the material record of that coexistence.
Dr. Marian Cueto of the University de la Cantabria, in a 2016 analysis published in PLOS One, reported the first confirmed cave lion remains recovered in direct association with human tool use, a set of phalanges, toe bones, from a cave lion recovered at La Madeleine rock shelter in the Dordogne, France, dating to approximately 17,000 years before present. The phalanges bore cut marks from liffet tools, indicating skinning, and were found in spatial association with a needle case, a carved antler, and human food debris. The analysis was interpreted as the residue of a pelt removal, not a kill. The animal had been skinned, not eaten. Cueto noted that pelt-only processing, discarding the meat, retaining the skin, is behaviorally atypical for subsistence contexts, and suggested the lion held a non-dietary significance. What the analysis did not address was the inverse question, the frequency with which cave lions processed humans in a similar manner. Taphonomic evidence for cave lion predation on hominids is documented at Azay Cave, France, Yarımburgaz Cave, Turkey, and Aldane Cave, France, at dates spanning 300,000 to 40,000 years before present. The cave lion entered public knowledge primarily as an artistic subject. It is depicted in the Chauvet cave paintings, c. 36,000 BCE, more frequently than any other large carnivore, appearing in at least 73 identifiable representations, including group scenes of multiple animals, which constitute the primary visual evidence for social hunting behavior. Public interpretations of the Chauvet cave paintings have emphasized the artistic sophistication of the human subjects, the ecological content of the images, what the depicted predator density means for the animal's actual frequency in human experience, has received less public emphasis. The formal zoo archaeological synthesis of cave lion-human interaction was published by Sotnikov and Nikolsky in Quaternary International in 2006, covering Eastern European and Siberian assemblages. The synthesis noted the presence of cave lion remains in human habitation contexts across 14 sites, interpreted as hunting trophies, ritual objects, or pelts. The synthesis did not attempt a quantification of directionality, how frequently humans were the prey rather than the predator in those interactions. But the demographic context of that interaction period is what gives the bone record its weight. Between 40,000 and 25,000 years before present, the period of maximum cave lion modern human overlap in Europe, the total population of anatomically modern humans in Europe is estimated by ancient DNA demographic reconstruction at between 1,500 and 7,000 individuals. The predator population for the same range and same period is estimated between 5,000 and 16,000 individuals. The predator-to-prey ratio, if humans are included in the prey pool, is the inverse of what modern experience with large felids would suggest. For a period of at least 15,000 years, in an area of approximately 3 million square kilometers, humans were numerically outnumbered by the primary large carnivore in their environment by a factor of between 2 to 10 to 1.
Number 4. The Saber-Toothed Cat. A genus with a 42 million year operational history as an apex predator whose temporal overlap with the genus Homo spans more than 2 million years, during which hominin skeletal material appears in Smilodon and Meganterion kill assemblages on 3 continents. The family Machairodentine, the saber-toothed cats, broadly defined, encompasses multiple genera and species spanning from the Eocene through the terminal Pleistocene, with Smilodon fatalis and Smilodon populator of the Americas being the most complete skeletal record. Smilodon populator, the South American species, reached body masses of 400 to 470 kilograms, in the mass range of a large male polar bear. The upper canines reached 28 centimeters in length, with a laterally compressed, serrated cross-section optimized for tissue separation rather than bone penetration. Functional analysis by Dr. William N. Young of California State Polytechnic University, published in Journal of Zoology in 1996, established that the killing bite was directed at soft tissue, the throat or abdomen, rather than the vertebrocompression bite of modern felids. The anomaly in the predation record is the geographic and temporal breadth of hominid Machairodon co-occurrence. The genera Meganterion and Dinofelis, both Machairodons, overlap with hominid remains at African and Eurasian sites from 3.5 million years to 800,000 years before present.
Dr. C.K. Brain of the Transvaal Museum, in the definitive taphonomic study of the Swartkrans cave assemblage, published as The Hunters or the Hunted, 1981, established that the majority of Australopithecus robustus and early Homo specimens at Swartkrans, one of the richest early hominid sites in the fossil record, bore carnivore tooth marks consistent with Dinofelis processing. Brain's analysis identified a specific wound pattern, paired puncture marks on Australopithecus skulls that matched in spacing and diameter the lower canines of Dinofelis barlowi. The implication was direct. An individual Mackay rodent had seized these individuals by the skull in a killing grip. Of 58 hominid individuals represented at Swartkrans, Brain estimated that the majority had been introduced to the site by non-human carnivores. The single detail that cannot be attributed to scavenging is the skull grip pattern. Dinofelis is not documented to process skulls preferentially in scavenging contexts in any other assemblage. Brain's findings entered the paleoanthropological literature immediately and substantially. The popular account followed more slowly. Robert Ardrey's The Hunting Hypothesis, 1976, had established in the public imagination the narrative of early hominids as hunters. Brain's inverse, early hominids as prey, was a structural revision of that narrative that required 2 decades to reach general audience natural history texts. The first major popular synthesis was Elizabeth Verba's work on the Swartkrans fauna in the 1980s. The first accessible general audience treatment did not appear until Donna Hart and Robert Sussman's Man the Hunted, 2005. The formal scientific consensus on Mackay rodent predation on hominids is embedded in the paleoanthropological literature, but does not constitute a unified research program. No dedicated review of hominid skeletal material from Mackay rodent-associated assemblages across all relevant sites has been conducted. The relevant sites include Swartkrans, Sterhemforthen, Kromdry, Bolt's Farm, and Gondolin in South Africa, Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, the Shungura Formation in Ethiopia, and Dmanisi in Georgia, a geographic distribution spanning from South Africa to the Caucasus. And yet, the duration of this predation relationship is the figure that resists comfortable framing. Meganterion coltridens first appears in the African fossil record at approximately 3.5 million years ago. The last confirmed Smilodon remains are dated to approximately 10,000 years before present in the Americas. The genus Homo emerges at approximately 2.8 million years before present. The overlap, the period during which members of the genus Homo existed on the same landscape as active Mackay rodent predators, spans approximately 2.79 million years. Modern Homo sapiens has existed as a species for approximately 300,000 years. The Mackay rodent hominid predation relationship is therefore 9 times older than our species. Number 3. The giant hyena. A predator whose bone processing capability, group size, and geographic range made it the primary large carnivore in contact with pre-modern humans across the entire African and Eurasian Pleistocene, and whose kill assemblages contain the highest absolute count of hominid individuals of any predator in the fossil record. Pachycruda brevirostis, the giant short-faced hyena, ranged from South Africa through Europe and into China between approximately 3.5 million and 500,000 years ago. It was the largest hyena in the evolutionary record, with body masses estimated at 90 to 110 kilograms, approximately 40% larger than the modern spotted hyena. The skull was proportionally wider and shorter than modern hyenas, optimizing bite mechanics for maximum bone-crushing force across a broader load-bearing surface. Gregarious, like all social hyenas, Pachycruda operated in clans, and the composition of its bone accumulation sites, identified across dozens of Eurasian cave and fissure locations, indicates provisioning behavior, adults transporting prey to den sites where juveniles fed on accumulated material. The anomaly in the Pachycruda record is not the presence of hominid material in its accumulation sites, but the frequency, consistency, and demographic range of that material across sites on 3 continents. Dr. Manuel Dominguez Rodrigo of the Complutense University of Madrid, in a 2002 taphonomic analysis published in Journal of Human Evolution, examined the Atapuerca TD6 assemblage in northern Spain, a level dated to approximately 780,000 years ago, containing the remains of at least 11 Homo antecessor, and concluded that the bone modification pattern was consistent with large carnivore accumulation rather than the alternative hypothesis of human occupation. The hominin elements showed long bone spiraling fractures, tooth scoring in patterns matching large hyenid dentition, and the characteristic end mibbling of cancellous surfaces that distinguishes carnivore processing from human butchery or post-mortem weathering. The demographic profile of the assemblage, including juveniles, reproductive adults, and older individuals, is consistent with active predation rather than scavenging-dominated accumulation. The detail that Dominguez Rodrigo emphasized was the absence of cut marks, no stone tool modification on any of the 11 individuals, in a layer that also contained no stone tools. The Atapuerca TD6 assemblage and the Homo antecessor species it defined were announced publicly in 1994 and received substantial coverage as a paleo-hominin paleontology discovery. The taphonomic question, who or what had accumulated the bones, received substantially less coverage. The canonical interpretation in popular accounts and museum displays emphasizes Homo antecessor's morphological position in hominin phylogeny. The Pachycruda accumulation hypothesis, while present in the primary literature, is absent from the majority of public-facing descriptions of the site. A formal multi-author consensus paper on the Atapuerca TD6 taphonomy was published in American Journal of Physical Anthropology in 2018, authored by researchers from the Atapuerca research team. The paper presented a revised taphonomic model that acknowledged carnivore accumulation as a significant contributor to the assemblage. The phrasing was qualified. Carnivore accumulation cannot be excluded as the primary depositional agent. This formulation appeared without press release or institutional communication. But Pachycruda's record extends beyond Atapuerca. Hominid material attributable to Pachycruda accumulation has been identified at Zhoukoudian, China, Dromolen, South Africa, Kobifora, Kenya, Tignafen, Algiers, Ventimiglia, Spain, and multiple Italian cave sites, at minimum 19 separate locations across 3 continents, spanning 3 million years. The combined minimum number of hominid individuals represented across these assemblages exceeds 200. No other non-human predator in the fossil record has a comparable geographic and temporal breadth of documented predation on the genus Homo. The giant hyena processed more of our ancestors in more places over a longer period than any other animal for which a material record exists.
Number 2, the African lion, the only predator for which epidemiological analysis of a 15-year mortality dataset, not fossil evidence, not oral tradition, but modern clinical records, established a minimum of 563 human fatalities in a single country over a defined time window, attributed to an identified population of animals in a bounded geographic area. Panthera leo currently occupies savanna, scrubland, and open woodland habitats across sub-Saharan Africa and a single isolated population in the Gir forest of India. The species has been extirpated from North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia outside Gir within the last 150 years. Adult male body mass ranges from 150 to 225 kilograms, females from 120 to 160 kilograms. The species is the only truly social felid, operating in groups, prides, of up to 40 individuals, with cooperative hunting increasing per capita kill rates substantially over solitary strategies. The anomaly in the lion's human predation record is not historical. It is epidemiological, current, and formally published. The question is not whether lions kill people at scale. The literature answers that question. Dr. Craig Packer of the University of Minnesota's Lion Research Center, in collaboration with Dennis Ikanda of the Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute, published a comprehensive mortality analysis in Nature in 2005, covering lion attacks in Tanzania alone across the 15-year period, an average of 37.5 fatal attacks per year. The spatial analysis identified attack clustering in the southern and western regions of the country, correlating with areas of inadequate human infrastructure, unlit housing, absence of thorn fence enclosures, and proximity to unpopulated lion habitat greater than 1,000 square kilometers. Packer and Ikanda noted that attacks occurred primarily between 9 p.m. and 4 a.m. in residences without solid walls or lockable doors, and disproportionately involved children and agricultural workers returning from fields after dark. The detail that distinguishes this dataset from historical or anecdotal accounts is the methodological rigor. Each fatality was confirmed through district hospital records, village headman reports, or wildlife authority incident documentation. The 563 figure is a floor.
The Nature paper received coverage in scientific press and in several major newspaper science sections. The public health framing, lion attack as an ongoing mortality cause comparable to other preventable African mortality sources, was not adopted by the WHO, by the African Union's health frameworks, or by any national health ministry in the countries covered by the analysis. The data appeared in wildlife management and conservation biology literature. It did not enter public health surveillance frameworks. A follow-up analysis by Packer et al., published in PLOS 1 in 2011, extended the Tanzanian dataset and added comparative data from Mozambique and Uganda, producing an updated continental estimate of 200 to 250 fatal attacks per year in sub-Saharan Africa under current lion population and land use conditions. The 2011 paper included a modeling component, projecting that attack rates would increase as lion populations recovered in protected area boundary zones and human agricultural encroachment into former lion habitat. The projection has not been formally incorporated into any national wildlife-adjacent community management framework. And yet, the 2005 and 2011 figures represent the lion's present tense, not its past. The historical range of Panthera leo included, until the Roman period, the entirety of North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, the Levant, the Caucasus, and South Asia to Bengal. The population of Homo sapiens coexisting with lions at maximum overlap, approximately 10,000 BCE, prior to the Holocene extirpation wave, is estimated to be about 1 to 3 million individuals globally, the majority in Africa, where lion distribution was at its widest. The lion's current predation rate of 200 to 250 annual African fatalities reflects a population reduced to approximately 20,000 individuals, roughly 2% of pre-industrial numbers. The proportional predation rate applied to a reconstructed pre-industrial lion population of 1 million in contact with a human population of comparable density produces fatality estimates that are not calculable from available data and are not attempted in the published literature. Number 1. The Nile crocodile. No, the correct answer is the collective predation pressure of the Pleistocene carnivore guild. The predator that killed the most humans was not a single species. It was the fact that for 2.8 million years, Homo was prey to at least a dozen apex predators simultaneously, across every habitat the genus occupied, at every population size it achieved. There's no single species in the number 1 position, because the evidence does not support a single species. The correct object of analysis, the entity with the highest documented lethality against the human lineage, is the predation environment itself, the configuration of large carnivores across the Pliocene and Pleistocene that defined the ecological context in which the genus Homo evolved. The components of that environment are documented individually in the entries above. What has not been synthesized in a single published analysis is their cumulative and simultaneous effect on the species that survived them. The anomaly is not a predator. The anomaly is that we are here. Between 2.8 million and 12,000 years before present, the genus Homo navigated a landscape occupied simultaneously by Megantereon, Dinofelis, Pachycrocuta, Panthera leo, Panthera spelaea, Crocodilus niloticus, Crocodilus porosus, Crocuta spelaea, Smilodon, and Hyraetus mori. Not sequentially, but in combinations that varied by latitude, habitat, and epoch. Paleoanthropologist Robert Sussman of University of Washington's Man the Hunted in 2005 attempted the first systematic review of the predation pressure hypothesis as a driver of hominin evolution. His core finding, that the physical, cognitive, and social architecture of Homo sapiens shows the signature of a prey species as much as a predator species, was not widely adopted in paleoanthropology, where the hunting origin narrative had been paradigmatic since Raymond Dart's Australopithecine studies of the 1920s. Dr. Donna Hart, co-author of Man the Hunted, identified the specific skeletal markers of predation vulnerability in early hominins, the absence of defensive weaponry, the reduction in canine size relative to earlier primates, the loss of arboreal escape architecture, the extended juvenile dependency period, the requirement for sleep in ground-level or low canopy environments. These features are predation exposure increases, not decreases. The social group structures, the alarm call analogs in early language, the hypervigilance responses encoded in the human stress system, these are, under Sussman and Hart's framework, the biological inheritance of prolonged prey experience. The formal response to this framework in published paleoanthropological literature has been measured engagement without consensus adoption. The official position, insofar as a field as diffuse as paleoanthropology produces official positions, remains that early hominins were primarily hunter-gatherers, who occasionally fell victim to predation. The predation-dominated model, supported by the taphonomic evidence reviewed across this countdown, has not displaced it. And yet, the number that does not resolve is this. Homo sapiens has been the dominant large mammal predator on Earth for approximately 12,000 years. For the 2.8 million years before that, we were not. The entire cognitive, social, linguistic, and technological architecture of the species, the architecture that produced agriculture, cities, writing, and this video, was built in measurable part by the selective pressure of being eaten. Every apex predator ranked above you was, for geological stretches of time, doing exactly that. The only reason you can hear this sentence is because enough of your ancestors survived the list. The 10 species in this countdown represent documented predation relationships spanning 3.5 million years across 6 continents against at minimum 11 separate hominid species, including our own. What the evidence cannot quantify is not how many humans these animals killed, it is how many humans they shaped. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.